Did the OCC screw up in allowing these J.P. Morgan trades to happen?
Senator, we're going to critically look at that question. It's part of my goal.
Some very blunt questioning coming from Robert Menendez at a Senate hearing on J.P. Morgan. Victoria McGrane joins us from Washington. Victoria, bring us up to speed. What's taking place on Capitol Hill today, and exactly what kind of scrutiny is J.P. Morgan falling under?
Well, so today's hearing, which just wrapped up a little bit ago, was focused with regulators. And what did the regulators know and when did they know it? And as you saw from that clip you just played, the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, was squarely in the crosshairs, particularly among Democratic senators. And really what you were seeing was like long pent-up frustration among Democrats with the OCC, which is the national regulator of banks. They were the frontline regulator for the unit in which the losses occurred at J.P. Morgan. And they've long been seen by by Democrats and liberals that as being too cozy with the banks that they oversee. And
Victoria, is it a little bit confusing from J.P. Morgan's perspective to be saying you're not really following the Volcker rules to the letter, even though the Volcker rules themselves are not yet functionally in place?
It's really kind of a complicated situation for exactly what the reason you said. There is no final Volcker rule. We don't know exactly what it would and would not prohibit or allow, because it isn't finished. I mean, we have a draft that the regulators wrote, but that was not in the force of regulation when J.P. Morgan was engaging in this trade. Nonetheless, it's become a key kind of policy question as people are thinking about the Volcker Rule, which is one of the more controversial parts of Dodd-Frank. Should it ban or protect against these kind of large losses? One interesting thing that the Fed's Daniel Tarullo said, and he's the lead guy at the Fed doing regulation, is that the way the Volcker Rule is drafted, it would have required J.P. Morgan to go through a series of kind of documentation steps to review what they have claimed was a hedging strategy, but a hedging strategy that went wrong. And he's suggesting that that would have possibly prevented this kind of Jamie Dimon has called a sloppy and poorly executed trade from maybe happening. It would have, perhaps raised red flags both among the regulators but also bank management itself.
Now, Victoria, is this in fact really a referendum on exactly what J.P. Morgan did, or are we simply sort of conducting a little bit of a play acting because the Democrats want to come out there and argue that there ought to be harsher regulations being implemented under the Dodd-Frank rules?
I don't think it's purely politics. I think what is going on, there is a certain amount of jawboning or play acting, as you're saying, because these rules are still being written. And at both sides, the advocates of the strongest possible interpretation of things like the Volcker Rule and other parts of Dodd-Frank are really using this as an example to kind of focus, public interest on what's going on, because it really does raise a question for regular folks out there who aren't following the ins and outs of all this stuff. Like 4 years after the financial crisis, why are we still reading about banks making quote unquote mistakes that cost them billions of dollars? And while it's a drop in the bucket, or for J.P. Morgan, given the capital levels that they have, it still looks like an awful lot of money to just be like a oops, So, the Democrats sense that, and they're trying to use it to their advantage, not only politically, but also to make sure these rules get written the way they want them written.
And Victoria, one last point. There's still one shoe to drop in this whole drama over J.P. Morgan, which will be when Jamie Dimon appears on Capitol Hill. That's scheduled for June 13th. Does today's action at all sort of set the table for the experience that Mr. Dimon can anticipate?
Well, he can certainly anticipate some really harsh questioning, at least from Democrats. Some of these Democrats on the panel were very aggressive. There were some awkward moments with the comptroller. I think what will be more interesting is what kind of tone the Republicans strike. I mean, we heard them today being a little more, level, saying, regulations aren't designed to prevent mistakes, and J.P. Morgan had plenty big capital cushion to withstand this loss. I'll be curious to see if they kind of ramp it up a little bit more when they have the actual CEO of the company before them.
It'll be fascinating. Victoria, thank you very much.